Hey you guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. If you never seen me before, my name is Chelsea and I write books about black girls who aren't all that nice. And today you guys, I am here with a review of Bones to the Wind by Tatiana Obey. And if you know anything about me, if you have been on the channel, you know that Tatiana is one of my friends. I absolutely love her work. I loved Sister Samurai. And this was my first time actually reading her full-length novel. That being said, this will be a spoiler-free review. So if you are looking to get into the nitty-gritty details of everything that her book is about, then I am afraid you will have to find another platform outlet for that. That being said, quick disclaimer before I get into my opinions of Bones to the Wind. Tatiana is a homie. She's been on the channel multiple times. If you guys pay attention to my author council, I've mentioned a few times that she is in my author council and we are friends. So that being said, I love her, but I also respect her as an author and as a peer in this profession. So this review is my honest opinion, okay? She had no say whatsoever in this book review. She is seeing it for the first time at the same time that you are. So that being said, I absolutely loved Bones to the Wind, and it's crazy because I knew that the book was good. I knew that the book was good simply because I like to think that I am a good judge of books simply based off of like how they start in the voice and the narration and the balance of things in like the first couple of pages of a book. And so when I first sampled her book, I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be so good, especially because her book is very much in the same realm that Where the Origin is in, meaning that it is a fantasy, it is an adventure, it is very black, it is indie, it is very much black girls who aren't all that nice. And I live for that. I live for it so much. So that being said, let me give you guys the actual summary for Bones to the Wind. The description for Bones to the Wind is: Raja is determined to destroy her old man's record in the forging, a trial each child must succeed to come of age. All Raja needs to do is hunt down a Ganda, hitch its tentacle ass to her windship, and haul it back home in record time. Easy. Or it would be if Raja wasn't stuck on the same team as Nico, a know-it-all, spoiled grubworm who never does anything Raja tells her to do. Nico doesn't care about Raja's egotistical dreams of glory. This is her brother's last chance to pass the forging, or her father is going to banish him from the family. She needs to scour the desert to find whatever team the Bones placed him on and help him kill a Ganda before it kills him. Too bad Nico and Raja can't get along to steer Windship straight. That is the description from the back of the book from Amazon. You guys need to pick this book up. It is so good. And it was so refreshing. I've said this multiple times and I will continue to say it. The thing that I loved the most about this book is that while I was reading it, I was very much aware that this was the first time that I was going to read this book. I will never be able to read this book again for the first time. And I loved it so much. I was like, I already wish that I could appreciate this book for what it is for the first time again. So the things that I loved from it, I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible for you guys, but the world building, if you pick it up for nothing else, the world building, especially if you write fantasy, right? Because I'm the type of person, because I write fantasy and I am so used to kind of looking at how authors do things, I am a harsh critic. I ain't even gonna hold you. I'm a harsh critic. Y'all know that I DNF books really quickly and that I could be like, this wasn't it. This wasn't doing it. I don't know why y'all are hyping this book up to the gods. This book deserves the hype. This book deserves every bit of hype. And the world building from the very first page, you understand that you are in a different world. You understand that there are different rules. They are in the desert. Their entire community is set under the bones of an ancient dragon. And it's not like, oh, ha ha ha, a dragon. Well, that's what we call it. No. It was a dragon. There's magic in the bones, and there is a reason why they live where they do. And there are different words and stuff that are used throughout the story that makes sense. And the thing that I love about good world building is that you should not need a glossary or for someone to explain to you what words mean. You should be able to get all the context that you need for something within the context of the story by how it's being used and how it's being presented. And this book does it so well. So the common terms that you have for relationships and things, they aren't you. So it's not like, oh, this is my brother, or this is my sister, or this is my dad. There are in-world specific words for it, like my G or my ta. And it's like, that makes sense. It doesn't make sense when I say it out of context, but when you read the book, it makes perfect sense. It makes absolute perfect sense. And I love things like that. And I love that the characters exist within a culture that has rules. And when they step outside of them, or whether they abide within them, there are consequences on both sides of that. And you see that really well with Raja and Nico, because Raja is very much like, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. She is seeking glory. She's like, okay, I'm going to push the boundaries. Whereas Nico is very much like the calm and the order and the upholding it, right? She has her own ideas of how to do things, but she exists very much within the rules and the greater good, essentially. And they butt heads, like the summary suggests. They butt heads a lot. But I love that even throughout it all, both of them have an understanding of what is expected of them, and both of them have their own ideas of how to meet those expectations and what rules they're willing to abide by, exist within, and which ones they are willing to completely disregard, and the consequences that come with those actions, whether they live within them or live outside of them. And it's great. It's great to read on the page. It's amazing to see both sides of it, because you get this full picture of the world, because you're seeing the culture on both sides. It's so good. It's so good. And they live in a desert protected by dragon bones, and there are finite resources, and the pressure of that is shown and felt throughout the entirety of the book. That's something that I appreciate, because sometimes in a fantasy world, it's just like, oh, this is just how it is, right? But no, there are real consequences. It's like, this is a forging and everybody doesn't make it through. And part of that is because they live in a desert with finite resources. And I love that that comes up in conversation, and that it's something that as you follow these characters, it's something that they are aware of as well. And I just really appreciated that. So the world building is absolutely incredible. Like I said, if you are an author who writes fantasy, please read this book, especially if you want to get better at it. If you are someone who just appreciates and reads good fantasy, read it, because you will not be disappointed. You will not be disappointed by the world building. And moving on to another reason why I love this book is the pacing. This book is fun. Everything about it is so fun. It's an adventure, and there is a really good balance. I would almost say perfect balance between action and relationships and character development, because when I tell you, I was turning pages like, oh, there is never a moment to just be like, okay, I'm bored with this. Okay, I'm ready for the next thing to happen. Okay, no. If they are not fighting a Gonda or trying to survive the desert, there's character development. Things are happening in here, and I'm just like, okay, I'm having a good time. I'm having a good time. So that being said, as far as the pacing goes, the chapters are split between Nico and Raja, and this is very much Raja's book, and I love it so much. Y'all don't understand. I love it so much. It's not a predictable balance between the two characters. And while that might not be for everyone, and by predictable, I mean, it's not like, okay, you get a chapter of Nico, you get a chapter of Raja, you get a chapter of Nico, you get a chapter of Raja. It's more like you get a chapter of Nico, or maybe a couple of chapters of Nico, and then you get a couple of chapters of Raja. And then maybe they alternate for a couple of brief moments, but then you get like a lot of chapters of Raja, and then you get a couple chapters of Nico. It depends on whose perspective you as the reader need in that moment. I loved it that you follow the most active storyline of the book. If you are a writer, one of the things that you are told a lot is that, you know, writing is about knowing the rules, knowing the expectations, knowing the tropes, but then knowing when to break them. And I feel like Bones to the Wind is a perfect example of what that means, of what it means to know the rules and know when to break them. Because normally when you have a split perspective, you aim to have a balance to the chapters so that you have, by the end of it, just as many chapters in one perspective that you have in another. The great thing about this book is that it breaks that rule, but in the sense of you as the reader get so much more out of the story because it's not locked into this rigid formula. And I appreciate that so much. That being said, with that kind of, like I said, unpredictability as far as the chapters go, the pacing is, like I said, it's pretty much perfect. You get that balance that you're looking for, that keeps you flipping pages, that keeps you turning, that keeps you invested. And as someone who is really quick to DNF books, I appreciate that it kept going. It kept me invested. It kept me wanting to know what was going to happen next. I needed to know what was going to happen with Raja. I wanted to know how Nico was going to deal with some of the things that were arising, I'll say, in the story. And also I was curious, it's like, how far are they going to go? How serious are these characters? How big is this adventure going to be? And I love that all of those questions were answered in a way that I felt was so satisfying. I was not disappointed at all with either the characters or the action of this book. And just so you guys fully understand, especially if you know me and you've been on the channel, I've already purchased the second book, and I'm fully planning to buy copies of the hardcovers so that I have them for display. And I am not the type of person that buys books just to show off. It's like, okay, I bought it, I read it, great. I need the physical copies of these books. I bought the digital version of both of them so that I can have them on my Kindle so that I can read them late at night, because that's how my life is set up currently. But yeah, on to other things that I loved about this book. I loved that this book subverted my expectations. At every moment, this book was doing something that I did not expect, and I lived for it. It kept me on my toes. It kept me turning pages, and I want more stories like this. And when I say that, I want more stories that are not locked into this formula to the point where it's so predictable that I don't even want to read the rest of the book. I'm like, oh, okay, I can see where this is going. But every time that this book, every time that Bones to the Wind, every time that Tatiana Obey had the chance to play into some common trope, or had the chance to be like, oh, well, if this is this kind of book, then this character would react in this way. She didn't. Not nary a single time. And I feel like that made the book more fun because it made the characters original. They weren't stereotypes. They weren't some characters. They weren't like, oh, this character is a main character, and therefore to keep the plot going, this, and this needs to happen. No, like, this character is who she is, and she's going to live in her truth, but she can also grow in ways that make sense for her. I love that the character growth was still there without being forced into this, oh, this character has to have a high, and then they have to have a low, and then they have to have another high again. Like, in hindsight, yes, it kind of technically still works like that, but it doesn't feel that way when you're reading it. It doesn't feel like, okay, there's a formula at play here and I can see where we're going next with it. It's like, this is the expectation and this is where she goes with it. She just goes over it. Like, no, I'm not going to do that to you. And I love it. I love it so much. Like I said, I wish more books did that because I feel like we would have so much more diversity in fantasy and in books in general, and it would be so much more fun than feeling like you're picking up the same book a dozen different times, right? But that's just me and my complaint. I also loved that every character in this book broke some preconceived notion that I had going into it, and I was so glad that when they did. I was so glad when Nico had her moments with I can't even say it because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but Nico's moment surprised me. Raja's moment surprised me. Kai, oh my God, I love Kai. Raja and Kai, I love them. They are my faves. I love them. Their entire adventure I lived for. And I also enjoyed Nico and Zephyr and all the other characters, but Raja and Kai, oh, loved it. Okay, moving on. I'm not going to spoil it, but know that the characters, every single character is well developed. And that is something that I'm going to add like as a bonus thing because it's not on my notes over here. I love that every character that showed up in this book was necessary. No one felt like they were just thrown into the mix to be thrown into the mix. There were no sacrificial characters. Every character was important. And again, I wish that we had more books like this. I like worlds with big casts. I like stories that have multiple characters and they all play a role because that is how the world works. We are not isolated little people who only have 2 or 3 people in the entirety of our world, our lives, our community. There are outside people who have perspectives and influences on the things that we do and the way that we interact with the world. And I love that because this is a coming of age. Every child within this community has to participate in this. And because of that, there are so many characters. There are so many people doing other things. And while most of them are not main characters, we're not following every person's journey. We're really following Nico and Raja. But those other characters don't just disappear. They don't just automatically like, hey, by the way, mention them in the beginning of the story, but then none of them matter. All of them play into the totality of this world that these characters live in. And I love it so much. And I feel like it's something that a lot of authors could pick up from, because I am so sick, personal gripe, right? I am so sick of reading books where it's just like, okay, you have the main character, you have the love interest, and then you have like the villain, right? And then maybe you have like a sidekick and a mentor, and that's it. Like nobody else in the book exists. Nothing else ever matters. There are no consequences for anything. The actions of the main character are affecting imaginary people who you really don't see the consequences for. Bones of the Wind is not that. When Raja does something, there are effects that are felt by other people in the book. When Nico does something, there are effects that are felt by other people in the book. When Kai does something, when Zephyr does something, all of these actions add up. There are ripple effects. Everything matters in the book. There are no missteps in the writing. There are no extra things that you can just skim over and be like, oh, that's not important. And I love books like that. Give me something to sink my teeth into where everything adds up to something in the end. I live for it. This book is so well written. It's so good. It's so good. Tatiana has such a talent for it, and I wish more people would read her book, read her work, because I also love Sister Samurai, as you can see, also on the shelf. She's amazing. Tatiana is phenomenal, and if you have not read her book, I don't even know why you're on this channel, honestly. If you're not going to read it, I don't know why. I don't know how to help you. If you're not going to read her book, then you just don't like good books. That's what you're telling me. If you're like, nope, I'm not going to do it, Chelsea, you can't make me, you're absolutely right. But I hate that for you. I hate it for you so much. I love this book. This is honestly, Bones of the Wind is one of my top 3 fantasy books of all time that I have ever read in my odd years of life, right? It's good. It's so good. I don't even I have no words beyond that. I really don't. It was amazing, phenomenal, incredible. Like there's so much you can take from it, because reading Bones of the Wind really had me over here like, oh, I need to step up my game. I need to step up my game because like I said at the beginning of this, Tatiana is my friend. Like she's my peer, she's my colleague, but she's my friend. She's the homie. And I was like, if we're gonna remain friends, I gotta keep up. I gotta write better books. I gotta write better stories, because literally reading her book made me look at Project Necromancer and be like, I can do better. Let me push myself a little bit harder. Let me do this a little bit better. And I think we need more books in the world where reading it makes you want to be better at what it is that you do. All that being said, final verdict for this book, if you haven't gathered it already, the book is amazing. And if you write fantasy, I suggest you read it. It'll expand your creativity, and it definitely expanded mine. Her book has gotten my creativity flowing in ways that it just wasn't before. And I appreciate that. It's like, oh, new level of creativity unlocked. Love that. If you're a reader who loves stories that are just like good, like no complaints, there's nothing about this book that I hated. There's nothing about this book that I thought needed to be done better. There was nothing about this book that I have any honest critique for. There were moments where I was in Nico's head where I was just like, yo, what is Raja doing? But it was never like oh, this shouldn't have been there. It was just like, I'm a greedy reader and I wanted to know what was happening. So if you like books that are good, books that just sink into your bones and you will carry it with you, like this story lives within you, this is the book. And if you enjoyed Sister Samurai, which is her novella, which a lot of people have, which honestly, if you watch anime, if you're Black and you watch anime, you need to read Sister Samurai. But that being said, if you enjoyed it, you'll enjoy this one. If you enjoy good stories, you'll enjoy this one. If you enjoy fantasy, you'll enjoy this one. If you enjoy Black fantasy, you'll enjoy this one. If you like sentences at all, you will enjoy this book. But that being said, I will soon be reading the second book in the series, which is called Dragging Your Bones. There will be a link in the description for you to go buy the book from Tatiana, because we support indie authors. And when you buy your books from the author directly, you support them the most, because they do not have to split their money any other way. I can tell you that I have purchased from Tatiana directly, and it is perfectly safe. She has a beautiful website. Please go to it, get your books, support her, yell from the rooftops about her books and her work. And for me, just know that I will absolutely be buying everything that she ever writes at this point, because like I said, I've read Sister Samurai, loved it. Read Bones to the Wind, absolutely loved it. I'm about to read Dragging Your Bones, and I already know that I'm going to love it. I already know that I'm going to love it, because there's absolutely nothing that could be in this book that I'm not going to enjoy, because where the first book left off, yeah, I need to know what happens. I need to know what happens. If you have watched this far into the video, first of all, thank you. Second of all, let me know if you have read Bones to the Wind, and if you haven't, when you are going to read it, because I know that after watching this video, you're going to go get it. Right? Right. Cool. And as always, if you have nothing to say, you can leave an orange heart down in the comments, because that's what we're doing this year. And yeah, be kind to yourself. Go read her book. Treat yourself. You deserve it. And that is it for this video, you guys. If you haven't already, please head to the Melanin Library to check out our merch. Buying from it supports the channel, it supports the Melanin Library, it supports the things that we are trying to accomplish this year. Also check out the Patreon. $3 gets you in, $5 gets you into the after chat. And again, it supports the Melanin Library in this channel, so that I can continue bringing you guys content. And hopefully, if you like it, you have also liked this video, subscribed to the channel, and turned on notifications so you don't miss when I go live, because I do live streams on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So get into it. Okay, great. That's it, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And until next time, I hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye, you guys.